Well, I'd like to talk about the Singapore model. There's a Singaporean economist that said, we in Singapore live in a grass hut. We feel every change in temperature, every shift in the wind. But you Americans live in a huge brick insulated home and you don't feel the wind, you don't feel the weather. So in Singapore, as a result, we're constantly forced to adapt. If you look at the Singaporean educational system, they constantly redefine their K through 12 curriculum based on the job skills that are going to be needed 10 years out. Singapore is a country with very few natural resources, so they have become a talent factory. So one reason that we have the skill gap is that many Americans live in that huge brick insulated house. Since the 1970s, real wages against inflation have been declining, but it's only been discussed in the late 90s and certainly in 2008 with the economic crisis. But because Americans were tapping equity from their homes, the illusion was that America was still prospering, but this decrease in real wages has been happening since the 70s, but because it's such a huge, powerful country, many people did not realize. So I believe the skill gap, in part, is because I believe Jack Welch also gave the quote to paraphrase that one of the most dangerous things for a company is its success. So I think it has to do with Americans being so successful, being in that brick insulated house, that they didn't make the adjustments necessary when they should. So I tell people that America is a great country, it's a wonderful country, but for our careers, let's be more like Singapore, constantly adapting. The problem also exists because of resiliency. I believe that the more we could train our young people to be resilient, the less we're going to have that skill gap. Resiliency really is about how do we adapt to these externalities? How do we take accountability for our own decisions? And I think the people that are the most resilient, they confront the harsh realities that the global economy has changed. Give you an example. Right now, 1 in 7 people qualify for food stamps. Now, 20, 30 years ago, I might say to that person, don't worry, the economy is going to improve, but the Dow is at an all-time high. Frankly, the economy has already improved and 1 out of 7 people qualify for food stamps in this country. So what that says is that there has been permanent structural changes in the economy. And as you pointed out, there is a mismatch between supply and demand of labor. But by people being resilient, by having high self-efficacy, and realizing that they are empowered to seek out the skills that are needed, that's going to refine the gap. So in conclusion, we want to be more like Singapore. You know, we want to live in that grass hut where we feel every change in temperature and we're constantly adapting. And that means being a lifelong learner, which is part of it. And it's also being resilient, not being afraid to confront the realities and saying, you know what, here are the skills that are needed, here are the skills that are in demand, and what are my goals, or what do I need to do to achieve the goals to get those skills? At the end of the day, people have to feel empowered to do it themselves, because when you wait for other people, other institutions, or even the government to give you those skills, of course that has its role, but that's not nearly as empowering as confronting that question yourself. So it comes down to resiliency, self-efficacy, and mentally, let's move out of our brick insulated home, even if that's where we really live, and mentally, let's live in the grass hut. And every day ask the question, what do I need to learn today that is going to make me more valuable in the marketplace? The economy no longer cares how smart you are. The economy no longer cares who you know. The economy no longer cares what school you went to or your GPA. Here's what the economy cares about. What can you do for me? And that's why people need to take a very pragmatic approach and say, what can I do for the economy? That's the lagging indicator. And then work backwards. Start with the end in mind. What can I do for the economy? And then what skills do I need to pick up to execute that?